Hello, everybody. Good afternoon if you're where I am. Good evening if you're where Emma is. Good morning if you're on the other side of the world. My name is Margaret Pinard. Welcome to my channel. You're on BookTube. I'm a historical fiction and fantasy author, and this month I'm hosting May of the Moderns, which is a May readathon, and we're reading modern period books. So 1901 to 1945, and they can be written or published or translated in that time, which gives people a little leeway, but also half a century of great books. So we're halfway through the month, which means that we've definitely put our foot forward in whatever direction we're going to be going. Hopefully, some of y'all have read a modern book by now. I've read 3, and actually, there's news on that in a minute. But to catch anyone up who doesn't know what May of the Moderns is, there's a playlist in the description full of the introduction, kickoff, as well as all the participants' videos. If they tag me, then I can see it and put it in the playlist so you can see everyone who is reading together. There's also a challenge on Storygraph. Storygraph is an alternative to Goodreads, so that is in the description as well if you want to see what other people are reading for each of the prompts. I've got 5 prompts. And there's a list of recommended books in bookshop.org. So that is also down in the description below. And those are affiliate links because I like to eat. So that is what I've got for the readathon. And I hope you guys are enjoying what you have chosen to read. I've seen some great videos out there so far, some DNFs, some replacements Berna did. And it seems to be going pretty well, which is very exciting. So I've got some news to share with you guys before I check in with the chat. The news is thank you. News of the world. And I say the world because it's international, because it's Canada. Last night we had our wrap-up stream for the Kickstarter for the Stygian collection, an anthology of author tubers' dark, otherworldly, creepy stories. And I had a story in that. And so we were hoping that it would be launched. And now we know that we reached our funding goal. And so amazing. Thank you to anyone who visited, retweeted, liked, helped by reading a post and passing on the message. That's how people's work gets out to the world. And it was just really nice to hear from the other authors on the stream yesterday on Holly Rhiannon's channel. And that's Holly Rhiannon and Pei Vio, the heads of the Stygian Society, a new small press. So I'm so happy for them. So impressed with the work that Holly put in. And yay! So that's the news of the world. Let's see, the other 2 fundraising things that were happening all at the same time, seemingly, also did pretty well. So our science fiction fantasy anthology, Half Human Heroes, organized by Jeremy Fee, reached 89 in its bestseller category, which is amazing. And A Mighty Blaze exceeded its goal for fundraising 2 weeks to pay its bills for the year. So that is awesome, which means our lit community is lit. So thank you guys. That's all I want to start this out with, the news and the thanks. So now I'm going to check in with the chat because I know there's some lovely people here to say, hey. We started off with SD Houston. Oh, I have a poll. So there's some questions about the poll because it involves one of the Moderns books that I've read. So, but yes, let's go through the chat. Emma also didn't know about Studio Ghibli. Okay. Let's see. Apparently I'm bloody cool. I'll take that. If these ring a bell, that's Studio Ghibli, and they've got like a very certain like stamp to their work. So yeah. Maggie, Penumbra Mine, Mama Maggie Ward is here. How's the Shire? It's lovely. I'm keeping cool. I just had an ice cream sandwich before I did this so that I would be cool. So yeah, hopefully it goes well. Anita AF Stewart, hi. Welcome to the chat. Yes, let's see. Emma making a pact to be clueless about what the young'uns watch together. Fair enough, right? Hi, Elizabeth. Bookhands and Books is here. Nice to see you. Maggie's got a question. I thought someone might ask. It's not Fabled Passages. It's actually an older book. It's The Keening. It's the first in my trilogy. But yay, book earrings. Thank you for noticing. Okay. All right. And just to revisit, the Kickstarter went well. It's over. And so now if you do want to buy one of those books because you're interested in Stygian, dark, creepy, otherworldly things, which I didn't think I was, but then I wrote a story that fits and I was like, oh, I guess I am. So watch the wrap up if you are so inspired. I've got another affiliate link. That is a link to buy the book, the Stygian collection. So, oh, there's other good news. I am not halfway done. We're halfway done with the month, and I've gotten through all 5 prompts. So how cool is that? My background here, my layout. Let me show you the prompts here. So Irish Celtic, that's happening today. POC, that's happening today. Translated, that's happening today. Backlist, not really. I'm gonna have to keep going. I mean, yes, it's owned, but it's only like a year. But that's satisfied. And genre, I don't know. These are sort of cross-genre, but I put books in the prompts, and Storygraph told me I won, so I'm gonna take it. And celebrate and just keep on going. So, let's start with the first book, shall we? Oh, Maggie's putting up the book. Thank you. So the first book, let me pop it up here as an overlay. So I listened to this as an audiobook. So we're gonna spread some love for Libro.fm, which unfortunately is not available internationally, but they're an independent retailer of audiobooks that I love to promote here in the US. And this is where I got this. I've been on Zoom lately, so I've forgotten how to do everything backwards. This version of the 1912 book, The Crock of Gold by James Stephens, and it is narrated by Jerry O'Brien. So, here's how I'm doing the format for these books today. I've got some outside information to enrich the review. So let's see. Who's James Stephens? They put him in the same sort of pot, crock, as James Joyce. So for all of you out there who have heard of James Joyce and have issues or experience of a certain sort with James Joyce, maybe James Stephens is who you want to try for your Irish Celtic modern pick, because he's also humorous. He's also Dublin based, and this book in particular is pretty cool because it brings in fantasy. And Shannon, hold on to your hat, because there is a Greek god in this book, and I bet she didn't know it before she did that with Clash of Goddesses. Haha. So I popped the bio for James Stephens in there. There was just one piece that I thought was interesting at the beginning. Irish poet and storyteller whose pantheistic philosophy is revealed in his fairy tales set in the Dublin slums of his childhood, and in his compassionate poems about animals. So I went in, having got this book, excited that I had an audiobook that would qualify for the readathon, because it's just like more diversity in every niche, right? And it said fairy tale, it said Irish, and I was like, sure, yes, let's do it. And it's short too. It's like 5 or 6 hours. And it was hilarious. So the book blurb says a novel in the great Irish comic tradition. But if you have tried this before, like I have, sometimes you know that humor from different eras doesn't hit. It can come off abrupt or sexist or just like not funny, like a kid trying to tell jokes, So I was like going in with low expectations, but I was laughing to myself on the street as I was walking, listening to this. So there you go. That's pretty high. That's pretty high bar for me. Let's see. So overall, here are my notes. The strength in this short work is its humor, which is quick. And if you've been around Irish people, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just, you barely notice it going by. You registered it with something funny when the next one's coming at you. So usually I will listen to an audiobook at like 1.2, 1.3 speed, depending on the narrator. I tried that with this and I couldn't keep up. It's just normal. But I had to go at 1.0 at like normal speed to be able to take in the narration. I was like, oh, okay. That was different. That was kind of cool. The accents and the voices of different characters from Jerry O'Brien were delightful. It's like an old folk tale until we get to the policeman coming in, and then we can sense the modern times sort of encroaching on the solemnity of the timeless, you know? So you start out with the fairy tale vibe. There once were two philosophers who lived together in a house, and you're like, this is very vague and general. But then you get into their wives and their children and what happens to one couple, and then that sets up the finale and the neighbors and the advice and stuff. And then it gets more specific when you talk about the crime that happens and the policemen that become involved. So I liked that development and that structure pretty well. There's the philosophers, as I said. Their wives are part of the she, so the Fae realm. So that's kind of cool. And they have some good insults, let me tell you. There are leprechauns in the story. Neighbors, foreign god, I won't tell you which one. Domestic god, I won't tell you which one. The policemen, strangers, just in general. Someone goes on a journey and has interactions with strangers. Prisoners, animals. Animals also talk to each other in this. And it's all archetypal sort of presentation. Like, it's not the things that you would expect them to say, but they have their own voices, but they aren't like described in detail with their own lives and backstories, if that makes sense. And I liked that. This is new, unique, and I hadn't seen it before. So I was like, this is very, very interesting. A couple of weaknesses I had were the philosophizing can go on for a bit long, and it can be hard to follow. Because he says, this is a fact, and this is something in the far reaches of this place that supports this fact, and this, and they just sort of like goes on, and it seems like it's trying to be funny, but then you're like, okay, it's nope, done. So the philosophizing, like, it goes on a bit long in places. I suspect there is a point to these sort of like syllogisms, but I'm not getting it because of context, which is fine. Also, the sexual determinism. This is what I'm calling it. It's like, it's what it is because of the age that it is written in. You're inherently going to find patriarchal expectations. The thing that I flagged for that was just like annoying, and I sort of rolled my eyes, but it's like, you're going to encounter this in all the literature of earlier periods. So, yeah, someone was talking about the nature of women and the nature of men. Woman, her nature leaps to be the comforter, and I just said blurg because I was like, no, this is not our job. But you know, it's not overwhelming, and it's sort of par for the course, so just a weakness. And then highlights, which I highlighted on the phone, so I'm gonna give some examples here. So the insults, as I said, especially the she women, are off the charts. I love it. This one I particularly flagged. You lob-kneed, crock-eared fat eye, says the thin woman of Ishnagra, or whatever it was. There was two, and I can't remember which one is which, but I love the insults. Insults for days. Poking fun at religion. At one point, one of his philosophy meanderings, he says, nowhere can one go to sleep more easily than in a church, because he's supporting the fact that church is supporting sleep or something. It's just funny. They've got maxims to ponder, so buried within the philosophizing and also in the action of the plot are maxims that are tested, and there's a lot of nonsense. There's a lot of people saying stuff that is obvious nonsense, but there's some that makes you ponder and like, is that true? What's the relationship between hunger and wealth? And so you're contemplating like class inequality and motivation in life, and some interesting stuff. So short novel, but packs a punch. I really liked it. And there's a happy ending for those who need it. Especially if you're like me reading Frank O'Connor and there's a lot of misery, or if you're participating in Misery May, this would be a good antidote to that. So yes, yeah. So delightful. Let me check in. I've got a prompt. So let me look at the poll. See how many votes we have. 7 votes. Overall, no. Okay. Well, then my question isn't going to land very well, because my question is, what would you say makes Studio Ghibli films unique? So I think Laura Nettles would be the perfect person to ask that, but she's not here. So maybe we'll wait. Yeah, so I'll just check in with the chat. Oh! Shannon read this book, and she still has the paperback. Oh, that's really cool. You found it very boring. Well, you weren't listening to all the different voices and someone doing the different accents, and maybe that made the difference. And also, like, the Irish sense of humor, like I said, so quick and like really subtle, so it can repetitive as well. So yeah, it can hit or not. Yes, Maggie's got the link to the Amazon version. I tried to put a link, grab a link for the bookshop version, but they're all suspect. They all have some weird modern James Stephens in the bio for the author, so I don't trust that it's a real publication putting it up, so I'm not going to link to that. I found the humor out there and couldn't get on board, even with the insults. Oh my gosh. And Emma says, that's my Irish family joking around so fast. Yeah. Shannon says, I think part of why I didn't care for this book, though, is that I wanted to dig deep into the original Irish myths, and these were not those. These were, after all, the Irish mythological cycles. Yeah, so it starts out standing like a fairy tale, but then it progresses into like more modern specific issues. They do have Angus Oak, who is like a god, right, who comes back. It's kind of like their version of King Arthur. They think he's gone, but the resolution involves their hero coming back, and I think that speaks to like Irish revolutionary spirit of the time, which is a very different vibe from like mythological cycles. And yeah, I already recommended The Children of Lear by Marion, my friend, author friend. But yeah. Oh, okay. So Anita's going to answer the question. The emotion. Studio Ghibli packs a punch. This is good. This is what I got in my research. I've only watched one. I think I watched Spirited Away once. So I'm not a super fan. I just know that it's really super popular. So I thought it might hit with the audience, but apparently it's a mismatch. So we'll go on to the next book. The next book is the movie. It's going to be the movie. It's called How Do You Live by Genzaburo Yoshino, translated by Bruno Navasky, with a foreword by Neil Gaiman. And this is being adapted very slowly. I think it's been since 2016 that the director Hayao Miyazaki has been adapting it for the screen, and it's going to be an animation like all the rest, and it's very on brand from what I'm reading from Studio Ghibli. So let's go through the same format. I'm going to put the information here in the chat for the movie, if anyone's interested. So this is a library copy. I don't have my own, and I did read the introduction. It satisfies 2 of the prompts, and if you want a copy, there's the bookshop link. Okay, so overall impressions of this. It's aimed at young people. It's got middle grade simplicity in the ideas and the clarity of the ideas and the naive and earnest characters. I don't speak Japanese, but it seems like the formality of Japanese is represented well in English, because when I'm reading this, it feels a little repetitive. Like it feels very stuffed full of politenesses and waiting and due course. I don't know if that makes sense, but so it seems to read like a Japanese book would to an English speaker. If I can be accurate at all on that scale, who knows? And also, the writing also points to the foreignness for me. So the vibes I'm getting are like the very polite society, the respect for elders, the civic duty impulse, the earnest natures of the children, and the class stratification. So a lot of this is helping me sort of form ideas of the cultural context of the lessons that are contained within the story. And like some of it is because it's 1937 and some of it is because it's Japan. So I don't know how to tease those apart at this point from this juncture, but it was interesting to see that represented. I've got one little category where I was going to say spoilers possible. So the surprises. I just had a couple things that I was surprised by. And if you don't want to learn about it, because you might read this and be surprised, hold on until the banner goes away. So I thought the main character, Copper, was like 11 or 12, because they talk about him going to the first year of junior high or first year of high school, and he's 15 at the end. And I was like, oh, so that talks a little bit to the point that I feel it's written to very young audiences, and their earnest natures. It's either the time period or like the innocence of what the author wanted to convey. I'm not sure. It's part of the simplification. So as an adult reading it, it went very, very quickly. I'll say that. That's it. That's all I had for the spoiler thing, just in case it might affect anyone's reading. Okay, so then weaknesses. I found the uncle's voice in his journal entries a little bit repetitive and didactic. So the whole book is sort of didactic, but the uncle's voice is the part that is a little grating. But maybe that's because I'm feeling like the young child that he's writing to in this aspect. And so I'm like, I don't want to be told what to do. Who knows? And then highlights, my little tabby tabs here. Just like the Crock of Gold, it's got maxims to ponder. So there's like philosophizing going on, which is interesting that I read these two at the same time. Very different, Irish, Japanese, but 1912, 1937. But they both have maxims. So this is why they came up in my head as an interesting point. Let's see. Someone who feels inferior because they are poor can never be much of a human being. So this is one of the things that the uncle says. And I'm in two minds about it. It can be read different ways. So the uncle is trying to impress upon the boy that no matter how much money you have, you should have pride in yourself and act like you want to be seen and received, not that you should be humble or what was the word that he used? It was kind of derogatory. abase yourself, something like that, right? So you shouldn't let your not having money make you feel like less of a person, um, because you all want to be human and embody those human qualities. But it could also be um, someone who feels inferior because they are poor can never be much of a human being. It also sounds kind of like victim blaming because, like, depending on the society, the messages that you would get would be that you're worth less. At least at this juncture in American society, that's what it is. And so it feels like victim blaming. So, yeah, obviously, I think the first interpretation is the one that was intended. Um, change how you feel about yourself, but that's easier said than done. So, maxim to ponder. Um, there's a lot of relatability to today. That's another highlight. There's a quote that says, "Even the hope that the next day will bring freedom from exhaustion is an inconceivable luxury." So I'm disappointed Richard isn't in the comments now because that's pretty anti-capitalist to me. He's talking about poor people who never get a rest and work just chases them throughout life so that they they don't have hope for the next day. It's like, ding. Yes, that's the world we're in right now. And then finally, there's two more highlights. So the empathy throughout the book, when we're talking about Studio Ghibli, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I think I've heard it both ways. So some people are wrong, and I'm going to be wrong maybe with some people. The difference, the thing that makes those films unique, those animated films unique, is that the characters go through things in a very emotional journey, as Anita was saying, and they face up to it rather than like kill somebody or run away, which is, I think, our cultural response in the media. So they grapple with things, they feel their feelings, and generally do the right thing or make a mistake and like face up to it, which again, not the American experience. So yeah, really grappling with that kind of thing is what happens here, especially like the last big conflict is the main character having to go through like a facing up to the music kind of moment, and the empathy generated is so good. It's really good. But it's throughout. It's not just the final conflict, it's throughout the whole book. And then the last highlight, why am I losing my voice? The last highlight I'll say is the cultural concept. So here's another piece that is coming out of the uncle's dialogue. The world is full of people who are not bad, but weak. People who bring unnecessary misfortune upon themselves and others for no reason but weakness. A heroic spirit that's not devoted to human progress may be empty and meaningless, but goodness that's lacking in the spirit of heroism is often empty as well. So he's basically saying, like, you have to have fortitude and generosity. That's the heroic spirit. But you also have to harness it to, like, trying to bring humanity forward and do good in the world rather than trying to turn the stream of the future of humanity back on itself. Like, I don't know, authoritarian dictators might, or emperors. So I thought that was really interesting. And again, the context of this is Yoshino and a friend started a press, and they were going to be talking to young readers about ethics, basically. Not a textbook, because that wouldn't fly. So they made it into a story and got it out in a time when he was already getting in trouble for what he was saying in interviews or in the press, whatever, about where the country was going militaristically going into World War II. So very interesting and really, really good read for May of the Moderns. I suppose that ice cream sandwich was not a good choice. Live and learn. Okay, so to address the question, emotion, right? Hi, Nia. Welcome. We're talking about Studio Ghibli. And here, when I looked up the studio and sort of their reputation, what makes them unique, this is what I got from the Google results: immersive, emotional, heartwarming, legendary, importance of relationships, humanist, grappling with adversity. And I thought there was a really good article about their sort of contribution and talking about humanism. So I'm going to pop that in the chat as well. But yeah, so I really am excited. That's the Japanese release in July this year. There is still no date set for the international release, so I don't know when we'll get to see it, but hopefully we'll get a trailer soon. I mean, that would be cool. Okay. I read 2 more books, which you can see on the thumbnail, and they are not May of the Moderns. They're actually both rereads, but very different genres. So the first one is called The Game by Laurie R. King. This is a historical mystery with Sherlock Holmes character and his wife, Mary Russell. So it's the Russell Holmes series. And if you watched my wrap-ups, you know that I'm sort of rereading through all of them to see if I wanted to keep them, because my mystery shelf is sort of overflowing always. And I actually bought this one because I thought I hadn't read it, but then Storygraph told me I had, but then I don't remember anything from it. None of the things that happened in this seemed familiar. And of course it was 10 years ago, and I gave it 4 stars, but I bought it and I thought, oh, well, I guess I'll read it again. And I gave it 3 stars upon rereading. So I do like Laurie R. King's writing a lot in general. Her books are 4 stars, and the first in the series, The Beekeeper's Apprentice, I give 5 stars because I can always reread it and just like feel like I've gone home. But various books in the series go to different locations and have different conflicts. And this one, it just, it didn't seem as crucial for our main characters to be there. And the relationships didn't seem as tested as other times. So it's really judging it in relation to her other books in the series, which is kind of not fair, because compared to other books, it's great. It's probably like 3.75, 3.5. But it just seems to lack the empathy of the others. And it kind of fell off how India was portrayed. So yeah, The Game referenced is The Great Game, which is like what was happening with the British Empire trying to gain influence and footholds with the governments of countries that they wanted to hold in sway, such as India and other principalities, before they all started gaining their freedom. So it was interesting to learn about India in the 1920s. But I get a very different sort of light shown on those activities in this book than, say, The Tainted, which I read by Madhuri Kavan. I think that's her name, who's an Irish author. And so, yeah, so interesting. I think I will give it away, but then like make sure that I note down that I read it. And then final book is Psychology, The Self-Acceptance Project, and this is also a reread. I think I gave this 3 stars as well, but then I was like, but why did I keep it then? And it was revealed in the rereading. There are some chapters in here that are really good and some that are like, oh my god, bonehead, that I really disagreed with. So they're all different contributors. It's edited by Tammy Simon, who runs Sounds True, a catalog that's been around for decades. And there are some, like, I don't know, familiar names in the self-help arena, if you will, that contributed to it, and lots of different forms of therapy that people discuss that they've used and sort of tell you a little bit about. So I thought it was very useful, and I might upgrade this one on the star rating when I go back. But yeah, it's good to grapple with, though, especially as I'm starting therapy and I want to become more independently self-accepting of everything while still striving to do good in the world, because that's what I learned from How Do You Live? So yeah, bing. So those are the 4 books that I completed in the last week. And yeah, now I'm just going to do a quick overview of current reads. So feel free to weigh in with your current reads. I'll pop this up here. So continuing in the psychology vein, I've got The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk about trauma and healing and therapy on that front, and like really about body mechanics and how you can work with the body to process trauma, which is fascinating. In the nature memoir category that I continued in, Thin Places, A Natural History of Healing and Home by Carrie Need Doherty. And this is the quote at the top is really good, actually. I don't think I've ever read a book as open-hearted as this, from Robert Macfarlane. And he's the author of one of my like 5-star favorites of all time. So it's a young woman, she's younger than I am still, who grew up in Derry in Northern Ireland and had experienced a lot of trauma, moved away, moved back, uses nature as a sort of metaphor, but like a real personal calling back to confront some of the things and process her life experiences. And it's really neat to listen to her talk about things. It's a very unique writing style. And I really like it. It's very calm and comforting. So that's good. And then still trucking away on the Frank O'Connor, probably like, I don't know, 20% of the way through of the best of Frank O'Connor. This is for May of the Moderns. I don't know. It's over 600 pages, so I'm not sure I'll get through it in the month, but definitely counts for like prompts because I'm reading his short stories. I started out with war and now I'm going through childhood. The childhood is cracking me up. There's like this little boy who's mad at his dad because he's taking his mom's attention away. And so he calls that one my Oedipus complex. Like, and apparently his fiction that I'm reading now in the childhood section is very close to autobiographical. So the wee Manny, you know, like it's so funny how people can remember things from 3 years old, 4 years old. I cannot. So it's fun when someone makes a fiction version of it, so I can sort of relate. But yeah. But yeah, I think if we don't have anyone saying current reads, I'll just wrap up. Bookcasts and books. 2 current reads. Jude the Obscure from Misery May. All right, yes, I can see that. And a collection of short stories by Yu Dafu, also spelled Yu Dafu, for May of the Moderns and the Asian Readathon. Very cool. Short stories. What country is that author from? Is it Chinese? Could be different because the syllables are so simple. They could just be a different hearing of a very different pronunciation. Yu Dafu, also spelled Yu Dafu. Oh, okay, got it. Thank you. Nita says, I recently finished Unquiet Spirits. Oh, okay, that's close to a title of another book that's historical fiction. This one is a book of essays, and I may go back and finish Miss Percy's Pocket Guide to the Care and Feeding of British Dragons. Well, that sounds fantastic. And I'm sure Shannon is a fan because it involves dragons. Shannon says, I'm doing beta reads right now. Dale's book, Self-Publishing Manual for Authors. Awesome. Emma says, I'm reading Adrian Santiago's awesome debut, Shadow of the Spark. Amazing. Nia is reading Crazy Rich Asians, but nothing for May of the Moderns. Yeah, all good. I have that on my list. Is it the first one or is it the second one? I think it's the first one, but I haven't read it yet. So tell me if you like it. Yes, from China. Okay, so the T and the D. Yeah, we wouldn't know. Bradley Lejeune's third book into the McMurdo Rift. Nice. Cool. I love that we're all reading. It helps keep me alive for sure. So I'm just going to wrap up. Where's my, there we go. Okay, so the last thing is What's Next, and that is coming up on Friday. I will be on Amy A-Star Reads channel. She's hosting a little reading sprint or quiet reading corner, however you want to call it, for May of the Moderns at 5 p.m. my time, 8 p.m. Eastern. So that is the link if you want to put that in your calendar, and it should be fun. Amy is here in my time zone, so it may be a little later for other folks, but it'll be just right for a Friday evening for me. So yeah. Okay. Nina Westra's fourth book in the Elves of Ardani. Fourth Elves of Ardani, which is a standalone book by Nina Westra. Fourth Elves? Fifth Elves? I'm confused here. If it's a standalone, how is it the fourth or fifth? It must be just like the universe that it's in. It is a series. Okay, so it's not a standalone. Okay, gotcha. All right. Okay, so it's the same universe, but not a series. That's how I would categorize it. Yeah. Sweet. Well, lots of work to do, writing, reading, staying cool. So thanks for coming by, everybody. Good luck reading for any readathons you're participating in. Thank you for participating in the literary community in any way you can. And happy reading, everybody. We'll see you on Friday. Take care of yourselves.